My name is Holly Rankin-Smith and I work for the Groundswell Project. And just before we start our session today, I'm going to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that I'm on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I extend that acknowledgement and respect to the traditional custodians of the land on which you are joining us from, and also the guests that I'll introduce in a sec where they're joining us from. So I'd like to honour the elders past, present and emerging, especially this week, Reconciliation Week. It's good to acknowledge. So today's webinar is part of this year's Dying to Know Day Home Delivered campaign. It's home delivered because of the crazy COVID time that we're in. And the topic today is getting to know end of life doulas. Who are they? What do they do? How do we find one? All of this and more is going to be covered in today's session with the three special guests who are each practicing doulas, and you can see their lovely faces here. So let me introduce Helen Callanan, who runs Preparing the Way, which is a great comprehensive doula training organisation and more, which you will hear about. And we've also got Carolyn Vaughan, End of Life Doula, and Kylie Hutchison as well, another doula. So it's really great to have experts who are working in the field to chat with us today about this interesting role. Just joining us, I want to say welcome. Today's session is about getting to know end of life doulas, and we're going to hear from our guests in just a second. But I thought we'd kick things off with a question to you, our attendees, first. So we're going to launch a poll in just a sec. And the question is, have you used an end-of-life doula services before? So you can answer that on your computer or your mobile screen, and it'll be great just to see who's experienced this, who hasn't, who knows someone that has. And I'll share with you the results, so it's great to see yeah, what people's experience of this role so far is. Just to give that a couple more seconds. It's great, it's interesting. I might pause that now. Most of you have responded, and I'll just share those results so you can see. So we've got 70% of people have not used an end-of-life doula before. 21% know someone that has, so maybe they've got a bit of an idea about what it means, but they want some more information perhaps. And 9% have used a doula's services before. I should have put who is a doula, because I bet we've got a good, strong tribe of them joining us today too. So there's those results. You can have a look there. Alrighty. So let's get into it. If our guests want to take themselves off mute, you're free to make noise now. Helen, I thought we might start with you, and I thought maybe you could just give us a general description of what an end-of-life doula is, and then I'm going to throw some hard questions at you just to get straight into it.
Okay, let's go. Let's rock and roll. So an end-of-life doula it's like a support role, Holly. We provide support, both practical as well as emotional and sometimes spiritual support to people. We provide options and education. And as I often say to people, it's like we walk alongside people who are aging and or at end of life, and those people supporting them. And it's a very diverse role. I often liken it a bit like to an event planner. You know, we have this event coming in our lives, or that someone we care about is having. And it's about having someone there to provide you support and options and resources at that time. But one of the primary things is it's a non-medical role, a non-nursing role.
Okay, well, that's interesting. And maybe that leads into my next question. I guess, you know, we know a lot about, well, we know a bit about palliative care generally, that's a medical service that's available when you or someone that you love is reaching the end of life. So what is the doula role in relation to palliative care? Is it something that's instead of, or you just said it's non-medical? So what does that really mean?
Well, I think one thing I would like to just put in there is around what palliative actually means. And, you know, the World Health Organization, their actual definition is that it's an approach to care. So rather than a style of care itself, it's a way of approaching care. That's a very distinct thing. And that it's actually for the benefit of patients and their families, although we call them clients, they're not patients to us, and their families. And it crosses many different areas. It's like providing support around physical and like pain, the management of pain, but also other things, psychosocial, spiritual, you know, other areas as well. So it's a very broad thing, palliative care. However, commonly, a lot of people think it is this medical thing. It's just the nursing and medical care. So that's one of the first things as a doula I'm often helping people understand. So in terms of what's the difference, so obviously, as I said, we're non-medical. So we're not providing medical care, nursing care. I'm not an expert in that. It's not my thing. And as I say, I can't do my job without having great palliative care, as in nursing and medical, as part of it. I can provide information to the medical and the nursing care. Sometimes I'm identifying things because I'm around my client more than they are. You know, if someone's having palliative care in their home, for example, and I think about my dad in this time, I was looking after him at home the last 2 months of his life, and I was there 24/7 with him. And we had an amazing palliative care team, but they came in for an hour a day, and not every day. And we also had a great doctor who came and visited. But the rest of the time, you know, I was there by myself. And obviously I had other family support and things, but largely as a carer, I was there by myself. So as a doula, we're often there at times that the more, if you like, formal care or medical care, we're there at times they're not. You know, I'll take the call at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're frightened of dying. You know, I'll be there and help them find and resource that hospital bed, or find out where they can get great complementary therapies to help them with their signs and, you know, symptoms and side effects. You know, we're like a gatherer, if you're almost like a hunter and gatherer and protector. You know, to me, it's about providing support. I'm not an expert in their lives. They are, you know, so I want to be, what are your values? What are your needs? Let's work with the teams around you, the medical, the nursing, allied health. Let's work alongside them to create this really holistic palliative care.
Yeah, right. So it's not that you're providing a service instead of palliative care. It's more that you're facilitating that connection with your client and the different medical and other services that might benefit them at this point in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, to me, the most effective times I've done doulaing and, you know, with clients and families and things is right alongside the palliative care team. You know, that they start to see, because often they're a bit like, you know, who are you and what do you do? Because it's an emerging role in Australia, right? And so, you know, once they see that I'm not there placing their person at risk, I'm not there recommending stupid things that I don't know anything about, you know, but I'm more of a communicator, a collaborator, you know, really helping create a space of support and communication and collaboration with the person and those people looking out for them.
Yeah. And it, you know, it makes sense that particularly palliative care staff who are so good at their job and care so much about their patients would potentially feel a bit concerned if they didn't know what it really did. And we had a couple of questions come through during the week that were around, you know, what kind of professional training do doulas have? Like, can anyone just say, hey, I'm a doula and I'm here to do this?
Yeah. Well, oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Are you finished? Sorry.
No, over to you.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, yeah, let me. So technically speaking, at this point in time in the industry, anyone can say I'm a doula. Because doula comes from the Greek word meaning, originally it meant to be to be a slave. You know, we've sort of elevated it and updated a bit now to be like person of service. So to be of service to someone, right? And inside of that, in terms of training, there's been a training coming out more and more. There's like, you know, in America, for example, there is a university level training in it from the University of Vermont. So there's everything between people doing none at all and people doing university level. For myself, look, a lot of doulas come to this training, Holly. I often say I get to work alongside the best of the best. People feel really called to this work. They want to make a difference. And they come with their life experiences. You know, I think for myself, you know, I started off as a natural therapist. I did a degree in Chinese medicine. I was an aged care worker for a while. I've done so many courses and things around death and dying. I don't have a certificate per se because there isn't one to be had. But I've done a lot of training in aged care, mental health, advanced care planning. I've read thousands of books. You know, I've done so many hours of online and ongoing personal development. So people bring their life to this work. In terms of what Preparing the Way, which is my company, what we provide is that we've developed a one-day foundation workshop, and that's like basic death literacy. Like, you know, it's who is a doula, what does a doula do, what are the different stages of end of life, what do we do in those roles? We look at the big picture. And then if people choose to go on, we've got a 4-day intensive, and there's a project they do that link the two. So it's effectively like a 6-day course. You know, that being said, we're working at the moment on a Cert 4 in End of Life Doula services that we expect to, you know, come through in 2021 by the time it's a big process to do. You know, yeah. We're on that. We provide professional ongoing webinars. We've got a brand new webinar series starting in July, which is monthly professional development training. So, you know, there's a lot out there now and different layers and levels of it. But the biggest thing a doula brings is their life experience, their commitment, and in the training, because we're not experts. We're not doing that. We're more like companions and champions. And I often say in my role, Holly, a lot, I don't know, but I do know where to get the information. Yeah. And I will go and find that information, you know. And the other thing to me, a doula is about, Holly, is about empowerment, right? It's not about me telling you what you should be doing. Who the hell am I to do that, frankly? What do I know? You're the expert in your life, not me. So rather what I would do with you is explore what are your options, what are the choices that are out there. Let's look and see what becomes a match for you and your values and what you want to achieve and how you want, what are your end of life preferences? Because there's so many choices out there now and most people don't know they have them. And when they do know, then they're informed. And I don't mind what anyone chooses. That's not my business. My business is about supporting people in whatever they choose, as long as it's legal and safe. They're the two provisos.
Disclaimer there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. And I certainly, I can speak for myself in terms of working with Groundswell. I've met many doulas over the years, and there's certainly, it's not the kind of thing you would just wing it and do it. It's always someone's, you know, felt really called to it or has had such a personal experience in their own caring role that they really want to share that with other people. And I think it's so true. Such an admirable, you know, thing to choose to do. It's not, no, you know, no offense to the doulas, but it's not going to make you rich. So it's, you know, there's no motive that's going to get the wrong kind of people involved, I guess. So it's really good to hear that.
And there's one other thing I'd like to say about that, Holly, if I may, about who comes. And at Preparing the Way, one of the things we've identified is that between 35 and 40% of people who actually come to the training that want to do it are people who are palliative care nurses, aged care nurses, registered nurses, AINs, ENs, all sorts of Ns, and allied health social workers. Yeah, and the reason they're coming, and this is the interesting bit, is because they want to return to the nursing of their heart. Because they're finding in the current medical system and how death has become quite medicalized. And please make no mistake, I do not cast any dispersions on doctors or nurses. I can't do what I do without them. I so deeply respect and admire them. But my point is that the way the system has become the way that the health dollar has become, the budget's become so restricted, patient staff ratios. And I had a senior palliative care, she was actually a unit manager, say to me once, Helen, in tears, say, Helen, by the time I medicate my patients on time, I roll them on time, I fill out the paperwork, I check in on the staff, I haven't got time to talk to a single person. And that was heartbreaking for her, because a nurse, I would say most of them enter the profession because they give a damn and they want to make a difference.
Right.
The system's got them so chained up, and that, you know, it's like, well, how can I? And they're coming to do end of life doulaing to get back into that true nursing that they wanted to do in the doula form.
So yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? It's like there's something wrong in the system if people that are called to care aren't able to care in the way that they really want to, or, you know, on that deeper level. I'm going to ask Carolyn to share her doula experience with us in just a sec, but I thought we've got some questions coming through and it might be good just to answer some of them now, because I know that there'll be more questions that come up when we hear from Carolyn and Kylie. So there's two questions that are quite similar around how do we make end-of-life doulas more widely known and more engaged and incorporated into mainstream healthcare?
Well, I think that's the $64,000 question, isn't it? And one that I work on 7 days a damn week. Look, you know what it all comes down to, Holly, in my opinion, and everyone, is it's education. It's a 100th monkey thing. You know, at the moment, doula is an emerging industry in Australia. It's quite a lot more established in the UK, USA, and Canada, and in fact in Europe. So we're catching up here. And a lot of people now, and I remember Renee, who's the director and founder of the Australian Doula College. I remember her telling me back, and she's a master birth doula, and I remember her telling me back, she said, Helen, you're where we were 25 years ago. She said, you're just moving much faster, right? The end of life world. Because back then, midwives would have nothing to do with birth doulas being in a hospital, right? They were calling them quacks and witches and all sorts of things. Whereas now, midwives are now recommending birth doulas. And in fact, Renee, as a birth doula, is now on the advisory board of the Australian Midwives Association. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like times are changing. It's all about education. Our doulas are preparing the way we train them and support them in going out into their communities to deliver little workshops, to talk about advanced care planning, to spread death literacy. You know, Groundswell, one of the leaders in doing that. So it's really about all of us talking about this role, sharing it, making sure that we've got the information, the accurate information. And if we don't know, find it out, you know, and then share that.
Yeah. And
it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. And it's an exciting time too. And I think in terms of education and getting the word out there, you know, there's no more powerful way to do that than through the power of stories, of real life stories of people that have had really great experiences with doulas, or doulas that have made a big impact in people's end of life experience. And I think the more we can all share and get the word out and share our stories and experiences, then, you know, the wider it will spread.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in saying that, I'd like to invite Carolyn to share with us her story.
We've got just a little bit of internet lag. I think it's probably my end, so I'll just speak slowly. The reason, I guess, that I came to this work and also came to meet Helen and all of the other doulas was through personal experience. I lost both my parents to various forms of cancer, and it was my awareness of the difference between those two experiences with the death of my father and my mother that all of the possibilities for me came to light. When my dad died 5-6 years ago, it was in hospital. I think as a family, we were too frightened to ask the medicos and the nurses and the doctors what was actually happening, what's going on, what sort of time frames do we have, could you ring us and let us know if there's any concerns. We didn't ask any of those questions because we were too frightened. We thought we'd be told. And it ended up one morning that we were called in a rush because my father had taken a bit of a fast decline, and he literally died in my arms. We didn't have the chance to have any of those beautiful conversations around what are your hopes for mum? You know, what would you like to see happen for a whole range of things? Share with me as a father conversations with your daughter. We missed all of those opportunities. When my mother became ill a couple of years ago, we ended up placing her into care. She eventually moved down. I live down in Shellharbour on the New South Wales coast. So I brought my mother closer down to me. And because of that close relationship we had simply being 4 minutes apart, I became her carer. So I would see her every day. And when we suddenly got a diagnosis of melanoma, all of these hospital visits started, and she and I ended up working together as a team. And I knew nothing about doula at this point. I had no idea what it was. But I became, in effect, my mother's doula. We would go to all our medical appointments together. She would sit there and ferociously nod and say, yes, I agree, I understand. We'd get outside the door and she'd say to me, what did they say? Explain to me what this is about. She didn't understand. So there was an opportunity there for me to gather information, to share that information with her. We had so many doctors involved in the process. It became a real challenge for us to get information and set up communication between all of us. Everybody was giving us information and asking us to attend appointments. Just simple things like we set up an email group so that it meant I could update everybody all in one hit about what was happening. For my mother, I became the person who gave her some form of continuum of care. I became her carer and her doula and nursed her through that 12 months, actually it was. We did all her emails for her. Took her to her doctor's appointments because that was what she requested. And it was a little bit of a tricky line for me to walk as her daughter and also fulfilling this role. I had my passions about what I wanted for her, but just to step back and allow her the space to make all of those decisions, those sorts of decisions for herself about what she wanted. And she did that all the way through the course of her illness. It was lovely and sad in a way, because when it came to the point that she decided she couldn't handle that role of being the patient and being the person that had everything done to her, she put her hand up and she said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want this. Like, okay, so how can I hold you in that? How can I empower you in the choices that you're making? What is it that you need to die in the way that you want to die? And she was in a residential nursing home. And part of the challenge of supporting her through that dying process was working together with the nursing staff and the workers. And that was a fantastic learning experience for me, because initially it was very much, well, you're the carer, we don't need to tell you, and we'll hold the information and the knowledge. But for gently asking and communicating and sharing that information with my mother and letting us all work together, it became the most beautiful process of working as a team. And to my mother's benefit, to the client's benefit in this case. And it was beautiful. I think we kind of, in our own way, shattered their image of what death in a residential nursing home is supposed to look like. Because my mother had beautiful fairy lights in her room. She had all her family photos up. We had music playing. And we put a sign on the door that said, please come in. Please come and say hello to me. In brackets, without saying it, please don't ignore me because I'm dying. Come in, say hello to me and share a moment of friendship. And it was absolutely beautiful to see the staff soften and come in and join in that process and be there with her as a support. So when she died one afternoon, I was really privileged. I worked with a funeral director who allowed me to transport her. I walked her out of the nursing home, shrouded in the most beautiful quilt that had been made by one of the families, specifically for that purpose, to say goodbye. I loaded her into the van that the funeral director had come in. We went back to the mortuary. We followed the van back that afternoon. I placed my mother, took off all of the medical tags and all of the lingo that you're supposed to have on you when you die, and very slowly wrapped her in one of our sheets, left her with some beautiful flowers that came from the garden where she had lived, and gave her a kiss goodnight. And from then on, they allowed me to be part of and actually handed over all of her mortuary care to me. So I was involved in all of that final part of death care, the part that for some people is a little challenging. It's something that I have taken to with great love, because out of that experience for me, there was the opportunity to create a lot of beautiful ritual and a lot of very deep meaning, and the opportunity to manage a lot of deep grief in a very hands-on material way. And since that time, I've worked with a variety of people. I have clients at the moment who comes to mind, who has breast cancer. And when I went to meet with her at her request, we sat down and talked about what is it that you need? Where are the gaps in what you have? She's a very organised woman, had all of her ducks lined up in a row, for want of a better analogy. She had her palliative care service on board. She had her family a little bit reticent to come in and begin that care process. So with a 2-hour conversation and a lot of laughter, a lot of tears, a lot of hugs, all of her family were present. We cracked the shell that needed to be broken just a little for that family to come together and support their mother through this process. And what she does now, she touches base with me whenever she needs to. So again, it's a client-focused role that I play. She lets me know when she needs support. She rings me and asks for a chat or for information about a particular service. So the role that I play as a doula has been very, very different for different people, depending on their circumstances. But what I've seen in all of those roles is the provision of continuum of care. So there is someone there that holds the bigger space. And I think that's one of the slides that I sent to you, was the photo of a lady who I cared for in Brisbane. And
would you like me to load those images?
That would be lovely,
now?
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, just hold on a sec.
It's okay. The background to the situation was, it was a lady in Brisbane, and she had suddenly taken a rather nasty turn with breast cancer yet again that had travelled throughout her body. And it was her friends who called me in towards the end, when she was getting close to dying. So when I actually arrived in the hospital in Brisbane, she had about 24 hours of consciousness left. And I sat beside her so that other people that had been there holding her could move away and take care of themselves. They could be with their families. They could go home and just go, oh, have a cup of tea, relax, remind themselves who they were. So for 22 hours, I sat by, Sue was her name, I sat by Sue's bedside, and she held my hand. And the nursing staff were phenomenal. We worked together again, so it was a shared role. They fed me, they brought me meals, they brought me drinks so that I didn't have to move. The only time I moved was when I stood up to go to the bathroom, and I came straight back. And when I did, I handed her hand to someone else who could hold her. That's what she wanted, was just be held. And I was with her the next morning very early when she died. And we just quietly sat and we spent time together in that space. And for her family, I helped the nursing staff do part of her final care before she left her room. One of the next slide I think I sent through to you was a photo of, it's a beautiful peacock blue shroud, and it's actually my mother's shroud. This was the shroud that I shrouded her in. This colour is her favourite colour, and silk was her favourite material. So again, it was a choice based on her. My daughter asked me if I could, these little ribbons actually come from Quest for Life. And they're called rainbow ribbons. And my daughter said to me, could you please tie one of these ribbons on Nana so that when she gets to heaven, she has one heart for her and she has one heart for Pa. And Pa, I'm sure, would have been very happy to receive his heart when she got there. So these are the sorts of little rituals, activities, for want of a better word, things that you can do. This ritual work has become very precious to my heart because it's a way of supporting people dealing with their grief. It's giving them time to let their head come to terms with what's happened and their psyche while they're actually doing something that shows love for their person. And the final slide that I sent through to you is a very precious one to me. It's actually a hand casting that we did just over a month ago. My dear girlfriend of 30 years passed. She died from multiple myeloma very suddenly at the end. And we did a hand casting. So those are my hands holding her hand in the middle. And that's something that I will keep forever. I took her husband in. He was willing to come into the mortuary at the end and do some beautiful work in terms of bathing her and caring for her, putting her earrings in, holding her hand, washing her hand with the most beautiful soap. And he also has a hand casting of his hand holding his wife's. And I'm just finishing that off at the moment to give to him as a gift. And they're beautiful things. They're simple things that have so much meaning, so much meaning. So in the middle of all of that, I actually met Helen and did the doula training, went through and pulled together all of these lovely pieces of my life and my experience together into this role. And that's the richness that I bring to the people that I work with. It's my story.
Thank you, Carolyn. It's so wonderful for you to share with us. I'll just, so gorgeous, the things that you share, those beautiful images. And it's so wonderful to hear how your own personal experience has inspired you so much to want to share that and bring that, you know, beautiful end of life experience to other people and families who may not know how to go about it or may not have the same opportunity that maybe you did in caring for your mum. I'm just going to get out of the screen share. We've got some great questions coming through and some beautiful comments from people, which is really nice. But I think I'll hand over to Kylie now to share her story, and then at the end we'll have time for questions for everyone. So Kylie, whenever you're ready.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Carolyn has actually inspired me with that hand sculpting, and she gave me the link to it, and I went and bought one, and I'm using it on my client at the moment. They actually have 4 generations under the roof, so we're getting a hand sculpture on the weekend. It's beautiful, just gorgeous. When I saw it, it was gorgeous. So thank you. I love the doula work for all the sharing. So how I met my current client is I knew her daughter. Her daughter had kind of, you know, saw on Facebook that I do this doula thing and rang me about 1.5 years ago and said, my friend's mum's dying and she's in hospital and she wants to die at home. And I said, like, okay, like, how close are we? And she's like, no, like this week. And I'm like, honey, I'm so sorry. It's not going to happen. I can't help you with that. And she said, but she wants to die at home. And I said, I know it's not going to happen. So what you can do is go home and get her doona. Go and get her doona cover off her bed. Get something from her bedside table. If it's a book, it's a candle, it's a lamp, whatever it is, clock radio, whatever she's got there, make her at hospital experience like at home. And that's, you know, and she died like that a few days later. I think it was 3 days later. And it was the best we could do. I didn't know at the time that inspired a conversation with that girl and her mum. So in December, I got another phone call going, Mum's cancer's back. And you told me I needed time. Mum wants to die at home. So what do we need to do? And I said, okay. It was interesting. The Grattan study that we often quote is from, I just looked it up before, it's 2009. I didn't realise it was quite that old. It's 70% of people say they want to die at home and 14% of people do. So that's not a lot. And I have quoted that a number of times, and I said 14% of people do it. She said, no, this is what we want. So my client, she said, I sat down with her and said, what do you want? And she said, I just want to see my granddaughter grow up, and that's not going to happen. I want a living wake. And I said, okay, never done one before, but okay. and she said, I want to die at home. And I said, okay, let's make it happen. She can't see her granddaughter grow up. So what we came up with was the daughter found, keeping this daughter as a resource for me personally, she seems to find all sorts of things. She found a website that will print cards for you for like $6. So she got one card printed for each of these things, each of these events, each birthday up until she's 21, when she first moves out of home, when she first travels, when she has a baby, all of these events. And she, used photos and got them all printed. And so the grandmother's been writing on these, and we'll put them away for her, which is just gorgeous. The living wake was all planned, so good. And we had this really cool invite, and it was all set for Easter long weekend. So that all went, COVID stopped all that. So we are in the process of trying to do a similar sort of one now, next weekend, a scaled down model. My client has taken quite a big turn downwards, and she's ready to do it on this next weekend, but we're going to spread it out over a few days so we can have a few different people come and make it a little easier on her. It would have been really nice if she could have done that, and that was gut-wrenching. So we couldn't do the first one. The second one got stopped. We're like, oh, she's dying at home. She's not stopping. We're gonna get this. It's been interesting and challenging, and the whole COVID came into it. Palliative care. She got sick at Christmas, New Year. That was really hard to get anything sorted. We sort of got palliative care just as we got it sorted. COVID hit, so they just threw their hands there and said, we don't know what to do. We can't come until this works out, and so there was a lot of caring at home without palliative care involved. My client is actually a nurse and was working as a nurse up until she got sick in December. So we have roped in a lot of nurses and help, and just called in favours. We've got palliative care involved and home visits now. But yeah, COVID really impacted that. So she took a real bad turn 2 weeks ago. Really quite dehydrated at home, pain wasn't quite being managed, and we were just trying to hang on. We were just trying to hang on. We didn't know what to do, and I sat down with the daughter and said, like, you're not coping. You've been isolating. You're homeschooling your daughter who's 8. You're not. Nobody can come to the house and give you support. Your mum's bad. This is bad. We're going to have to go to hospital. As gut-wrenching as that decision was, but we got her there. We got palliative. The daughter rang and got palliative care to come and assess her and said, yeah, she needs to go. So we got her to hospital and got her pain under control, changed some of the meds, and they do an incredible job. But they got all that under control. Meanwhile, we were ringing up. They said she couldn't come home without oxygen. So all of these things keep getting thrown at us, and it's this, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So I don't know how the daughter did this. She somehow managed to get the truck driver's phone number who delivers the gas and begged him. And in the end, I think he just agreed to do it just to get her off the phone. But it was, she said, I'll just be there in 20 minutes. All right, like, I'll just come now. And so the gas guy turned up on Friday morning And then the Friday afternoon, the doctor said, fine, all right, we'll let her go. If the gas is in, we got her home on Saturday morning, and we thought that would be it. We thought, well, we're only going to have a few days here. But she's sort of rallied and really keen and sort of keen to have this wake again. And I said, okay. But it's a massive effort by everyone. It was, ringing in her friends, her neighbours. They're bringing food, and so, we're like, okay, it's a roster system of food. Carolyn said there was an email group for us. We've set up a messenger group with the friends, and they're all, checking on each other and saying when they can be here and when they can't, and what they can bring. And, people have been picking up things, and it really is, like Helen said, it's like event management. It's it really is. I have a background in hospitality. I came to doulaing because I had done this for people. I'd just done it over my years, but my paid job was in hospitality and event management, and I did weddings. It feels a lot like it. We plan. I mean, how much effort goes into planning a birth and a holiday. We'll spend 12 months planning a holiday and 2 years planning a wedding down to the minute details. And then it comes to death, and all these people just want to wing it, and it's not, you can absolutely wing it. You can go right in, and same with the birth plan, you can just, power through it. But if you want the death that you want, and you want it in a way, and you want an experience, whatever that is, I don't mind. Whatever your experience is that you want, if you want that, you've got to have that conversation. You have got to have those talks around it. And it requires planning. To get registered for home care in New South Wales can take 4 weeks. Gas delivery is normally 5 days. I do have the guy's phone number though. Really helpful. And a hospital bed, hiring equipment, this can take weeks. Buying beds can take 4 weeks. This is stuff that has to be organised, thought of, planned, and if you want to buy this equipment, then you've also got to look at where does it fit in your house. Where can you put this? Is it set up to be able to do it? And there's a lot of factors that may be awkward conversations. And I do ask that awkward question that nobody else will ask. It's things, we had a home visit by the doctor because my client is a nurse. She does have a doctor home visited, which was amazing. And we're like, okay, yeah, we've got your phone number, so you'll sign the death certificate. And there was another visitor there who was like, I don't understand why you're surprised by this conversation. This is something that has to be talked about. And I get that it's uncomfortable. I was like, okay, she's not really keen for that. But it has to happen. If you want your death the way you want it, then these are the conversations you've got to have. Yeah.
Thanks, Kylie. That's so interesting. I think you've really shared so generously, and it's great to hear some of your experiences, and lots of comments just saying how creative you've got to be as a doula. I had this image in my mind of you being a ninja. You just like, all things coming at you and you're blocking it and finding ways to work around it. And it's, it's amazing. And it's so true, I guess, from the stories that we hear as well, that if you have a particular way or idea that you want of how you want your death to be, then you've got to have a plan. You've got to make that happen, and you need a bit of a build up for some of those things, dying at home being one of them.
Yeah.
We've had a few questions come through, so I might throw to the three of you. You can jump in however you like. So there's been a couple of questions around, is a doula role volunteer, or how is it billed? Is there a pricing structure? And also, how many clients can one doula be looking after at one time? Over to you.
You want me to do it? In terms of how many clients a person can have at one time, look, it really is very much a moving target. You know, birth doulas, they know their job's going to be around 9 months. You know, I've worked with people for 3 years, from diagnosis right through. I've worked with someone who died within 5 days. You know what I'm saying? So it's really about what is your capacity, and also about the other thing I do too is if I've got, you know, quite a heavy load, or I know I'm teaching as well or whatever, I always have a senior doula, you know, backing me up. And part of what I do with families is saying that if I can't be present for whatever reason, I might be ill or I might have a family emergency. I mean, life happens, right? I have to make sure that the client is taken care of. So one of the things I do with people say that I will always have a senior doula there if I can't be, because it's about doula. It's not about Helen or Carolyn or Kylie, right? It's about doula, having doula present. In terms of pricing, I've got 2 different ways I work, and the girls may have something different they want to share. Again, there's no regulatory body at this point in the industry. I have 2 ways I work. One of them is that I bill by the hour, because I do quite a lot of consultation. Sometimes I never meet the person with the diagnosis. I'm working only with the family who are wanting to get information. So we might do that on an hourly basis. If I'm working as a doula, often I'll have an hour's package. Like I have a 10-hour package, a 15-hour package, and a 30-hour package. So, you know, it just depends on what you're doing. Are you girls, do you operate similarly?
Yes.
Yeah. So each doula at this point works out their own way, and it's probably a bit case by case, I would imagine, depending how.
It is. And I think it's about years of experience. And, you know, some doulas are also very experienced nurses, you know, but one of the things we do in the training is talk about, you know, if you're a nurse and you're registered, then you can do nursing, but doula is doula. Don't be blending those. It's like for myself, I'm also a Reiki practitioner and teacher. If I'm going to be doing Reiki with the client, I actually bill that separately. My doulaing is my doulaing, and whatever else I'm doing is I bill separately to that, just to keep that to be clear. I think otherwise it can muddy up, you know, that doula, well, she gave medication and, you know, medical advice. Well, a doula does not do that. You know, we don't give advice. We provide options. We don't administer medication, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. It's good to clarify that. Another question that's come through from Angela, and Kylie, you touched on this a little bit when you shared. What impact has COVID had on doulas and their close contact with clients and families?
Yeah, that huge, huge impact. Nothing short of huge, as it has with everyone, but on close contact, yeah. You're dealing with immune suppressed people, and it definitely made me learn a little bit more about tech than I needed. I'm lucky I've got 2 clients at the moment, both are really good with their tech. So I was able to still sort of FaceTime them or as they wanted and talk to them over the phone remotely. And one lives about 40 minutes drive from me. And I said, look, I think you're pretty upset. I might come and sit with you and have a cup of tea. And she said, no, you'll get in trouble. And I was like, do you think I'm going to get arrested in a 40-minute drive? Like, I said, it's okay, I can come for work. And she said, oh, all right. So I did. We went, it's all very, you know, social distancing even inside her house. But yeah, she needed a bit more than what that is. And it's really hard. It's a huge impact. And not only on us dealing with our clients, but we couldn't get pal care for my other client. We couldn't get a community nurse because they didn't know what they could do and what they could provide and how they could keep themselves safe and each client safe as they visited each client. You know, deliveries of things, everything just ground to a halt. It's been massive. So it is a massive learning curve. And I think we just have to do the best.
And I guess it's extra tricky. I mean, it's, you know, obviously it's quite an extreme circumstance, but there's no kind of COVID guidebook for anything really. We're just finding our feet now. So yeah, it sounds really challenging. Another question is, how do you check in with your own emotions when the person that you've been working with does die? I think that's a really great question. Like, I think that would be really hard or really challenging.
Yeah, you definitely develop a relationship with them.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that at all, Helen or Carolyn?
Yeah, sure, I'm happy to. A couple of things about that. One is that there is always a gap, you know, left when someone dies. And I think one of the things as a doula, though, is over the years, and this has changed for me, you know, I think our resilience grows. I think as we get more experienced, I'm also more skilled at managing my emotions now. I work with a counsellor regularly, which I think is important that we manage our well-being in that way. You know, I'm into meditation personally. That's a help for me. But I think, you know, really it's also about, I think doulas, I feel very comfortable around death. I really don't, while some circumstances can be difficult and I can feel the grief and see the grief of a family, it's not my grief. You get what I'm saying? It's like, and sometimes it is, if it's a person in my family or someone I'm close to or I've got attached. But, you know, to me, that's where debriefing is important, supervision is important. It's where having other doulas that I can download with. You know, I'm known to ring a doula and go, I've just stepped out of the room. I need you to listen. And I download and they go, thanks very much. Bye. You know, and you know, doing that. So it's about us each knowing ourselves and having our own supports in place. Because I think self-reflection and critical reflection is crucial to growing in this role as a doula.
Yeah, and I think certainly when I've met doulas, it's such a strong tribe of people. Like, you always seem like really great friends and that you're just catching up because you haven't seen each other for a while, and it's always this quite tight-knit circle. So I feel like that must be a real benefit of going through that training and forming that connection with different people who are now going to share that experience professionally.
Yeah.
We had another question about whether anyone's had any experiences using the Gather My Crew tool, which I think has come out of that idea of setting up message groups or setting up an email chain. And for anyone who doesn't know, Gather My Crew is a great website where you can set up a small support crew, and one person kind of manages it and puts in what the person who's being cared for needs, and then kind of sends it out to the people in that kind of care circle. We do have a webinar that we've done about that app, that tool, with the founder of that. So we won't go into that, I think, in this session, but you can find that. Maybe we'll link to that video in our email that we'll send out.
Yeah, great.
I think we're getting towards the end, and there's been some really great questions and great chat as well. And I think it'd be good to continue these conversations on the event, Facebook event, if you want to keep chatting. I'm just going to end with another question for our attendees, just to share how this has maybe informed your knowledge of the doula role. So I'm going to launch another poll. Here we go. So the poll is: reflecting on what has been shared and discussed today, are you more likely to use an end-of-life doula after participating in this webinar? So this is a great one for us to learn, you know, how much you got out of today, and also for Kylie, Carolyn and Helen to learn, you know, that how they've shared their stories and what impact that's had. So it's great for us to learn more. Just while I think of it as well, Helen, maybe it would be great for you to share how people get a doula if they want one after watching this and feeling like, oh yeah, that could be really beneficial for me or my loved one. Yeah. Maybe you want to jump into that, and I'll just share the poll so we can see.
Yeah, great, thank you. So there's three major ways at the moment. One of them is people who've done the Preparing the Way training are eligible to become members of the Australian Doula College. And as such, there's a website that you can go to. They have a code of conduct and ethics. There's a 24-hour on-call support for the doulas, etc., and other professional development. So that's one way they can go to the Australian Doula College. Another one is there's a website actually created by one of our doulas called, it's www.endoflifedouladirectory.com.au. And there's doulas from all different trainings on that website. And then also on my Preparing the Way website, where there's a Find a Doula option there where people can write in what their circumstances are, and then I can make referral from there.
And
so that's three of the major ways. Say that again.
Who engages the doula? Can anyone engage a doula? It could be, or it's got to be the carer, or...
Yeah, so as I said earlier, there are times I just work with the family. I never meet or have anything to do with the person with the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the person who has the diagnosis who contacts me. Sometimes it's someone who doesn't even have a diagnosis, who they want to do their end-of-life planning. They're well and living their lives, but they go, you know what, I need to know and get this stuff in place, which they're my favourite ones, because it's like, thank you for being proactive in this, and giving this gift to the people that care about you. So anyone can engage a doula, absolutely, yes.
Great. Okay, is there any final comments, Kylie or Carolyn, that you'd like to share?
No, just thank you. Thank you for this. It's beautiful. Thanks for giving us the opportunity. Yeah.
No, thank you both so much for sharing your stories. It's so powerful to hear, and really diverse perspectives that cover a lot, I think, of what doulas are and have offered such great insight to us. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who's attended the webinar. It's really great to see so many people. Please join us over on Facebook if you would like to chat after this, and we will follow up with an email with the link to this recording and the other links and contacts that we've discussed today. Thank you very much, and thank you, Tara, for being our mighty tech whiz.
And thank you, Groundswell. We love you. Thanks so much, Holly. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you. And